Hello and welcome to Hippocampus Family, where we share what it's like raising 4 children in the wonderful city that is London, with homeschooling, parenting hacks, and London life all thrown in there. We hope you enjoy this next video, and if you're new here, consider subscribing. We decided to take the plunge into homeschooling way before lockdown, but it's become increasingly aware to us that there are parents who have experienced a little bit what it's like home educating their child through lockdown and now really want to pursue it in September and don't really know where to start. And so what we wanted to do is to present to you the 6 different famous methods that different homeschool families, home educating families use, and help you to try and make up your mind maybe which one is best for your family. Let's jump right in. Okay, we're going to be using our trusty whiteboard here. We put this up at the beginning of our homeschooling journey. It's actually an old whiteboard from my husband's old office, which he lovingly put up with Velcro, but it has held up. So if you don't want to drill your walls, really strong Velcro. Lasted a whole year. So for the first methodology that we're going to look at is something called Charlotte Mason, which may sound like a bit of a weird name, but it's actually because it's the name of the lady who came up with the method. And it's basically a method that focuses on the whole child, holistic learning, and basically what that means, you don't just do pure academics. You do a lot of things about nature, try to make the child understand about the nature that is around them, like physically. Character is also a really high part of the Charlotte Mason methodology. You want your child to develop a character that is kind, but also you want to help them to be an active and a conscientious part of society. So that is sort of built in. There are loads of books online on Charlotte Mason, so they are available as well. It's all about nurturing your child's curiosity about learning, and it's also about quality over quantity. Not learning about 100 different types of trees and understanding one thing about one particular one, but maybe you'd focus on an oak tree, for example, and you'd look at that and understand the different parts of it properly before you'd go on to the next one. In Charlotte Mason, you do something called living resources. Literature is a big part of the Charlotte Mason method. So they become living books. You're not going to just use textbooks. So if your child is learning about ancient Greece, you wouldn't just be using a textbook, for example. You might read some of Homer, or you might look at some ancient Greek philosophy and that kind of thing. It's all about living text. For example, maybe if your child's going to be learning about farming, you might read Charlotte's Web to give a bit of more understanding, and you'd pull out learning themes from those books. So that's Charlotte Mason. Okay, for our next one, it's the one that might scare you a little bit. It's the unschooling. So unschooling is what it sort of sounds like. When I first came across this method, my eyebrows did raise. However, I've learned to love some parts of it, but it might work really great completely for your family. So what it is with unschooling is that you do not teach your child in the traditional sense. It is all child-led learning. For example, if your child's really into dinosaurs, you're going to pursue that, and you pursue that and you look at different things and you learn about different things with that child, alongside that child, until your child wants to learn something else, and then you'd go on to something else. It is purely child-led learning, and this nurtures a child's natural love of learning. The thing of unschooling, the focus is on actually learning and not just content. So for example, if your child is really into something, you're not just going to skip past it because you have to go on to the next part of the curriculum. There is not a set plan in motion. It is how your child wishes to learn and what they want to learn about. This may sound like a really romantic option where you do not need to do any planning and you can just go through your day with breeze. This is a great opportunity, unschooling, but it's not the lazy option. If you want to do this methodology properly and you want to give your child a solid education, it is not lazy. You have to be on the ball. You need to know what your child is into, and you need to understand that you need to also put things in front of them that are going to spark their interest. Sometimes kids just don't know what they want. And so while it is child-based, I would also say that it does involve some sort of parent involvement, but it is still child-led in the sense that, well, if you present something your kids are not interested in, well, then you just sort of move on to something else. But it's not the lazy option. The next method we're going to look at is something called classical. So, pretty much what it says on the tin, it's classical. But no, it's not. It's classical because it focuses on communication and logic skills. Okay, its information is presented as if it's a part and not the whole. So you will tell your kid, I'm telling you this one part about the Fire of London does not mean you know all things about the Fire of London. Personally, I think that's great because sometimes kids can get this idea that they understand all the things of the world because you've had one lesson on the subject, and obviously that's not real life. So, yeah, that's a part of classical method, is that the child understands that the information is presented as a part and is not the whole of the knowledge that can be get. Another part of the classical methodology is trivium, which is grammar, logic and rhetoric. This is basically you're teaching your child how to think logically. This is a skill that is greatly needed in society today, in my personal opinion. I don't know about yours. But you're teaching your child how to learn rather than just the information, which I think is a very important skill because, you know, you can learn all this information, but you have no idea what to do with it. And what happens when your child is an adult and they do not have a structured education environment, or they do not have a home educating environment, but they need to learn on their own, and they need to learn how to learn. It's not just about what to learn, it's the how and the methodology and being able to analyse things accurately. So, for example, if you're teaching your child logic, it's going to be different for a 3-year-old than it is for like a 9-year-old. But you teach it at their level. So, for example, with a 3-year-old, it's maybe the logic of going the right way around a table in order to get out of that place accurately. And you teach them how you're doing that. Does that make sense? For a 9-year-old, however, there is more steps to logic-based thinking. It's if this happens, what is the consequences, and so on and so forth. So that is an example of how logic could be taught. So that is the classical method. So the fourth one we're going to look at is the one that you probably know from your schooling days, which is traditional. Which is basically, it's all adult-based learning. You'll maybe have the subjects are separated, so you will have your history, you will have your science, you will have your math, and never the subjects shall meet, even though you've got math and history and science and geography. But in your traditional setting, you have your subjects separated, and that's what your traditional learning is all about. It's adult based. You may replicate your school day in it. So, for example, you may start at 9 and finish at 3:30, and you will follow a set curriculum. So that's traditional. Okay, so the fifth one that we're going to look at is something called unit studies. And this is something that we really liked, and we'll explain about that in a minute. But basically, unit studies is where you pick a series of topics to look at, and you will include your different subjects within that. Let me explain a little bit. So, for example, my husband can speak Japanese, and so we did a unit study on Japan. So we looked at part of the history, we looked at the food, we looked at the geography of the different islands, we looked at the technology that they have, we compared Japan cities to English cities, and that kind of thing. So we brought in all the different subjects into our topic of Japan. We also did some Japanese language. We also looked at some Japanese cartoons, which my kids really liked. We listened to Japanese music. So if you get the sort of idea, you pick a topic of your own choosing, and then you fit the other subjects into that. We really liked unit studies, and that's something that worked for us. We'll explain why in a little bit. It is both child and parent-led. Let me explain. So, for example, you can pick topics that your child really likes. So, for example, our eldest daughter is really into the Egyptians, so we did a whole topic on the Egyptians. And so that was very much her led. She wanted to learn about the Egyptians, she wanted to do the mummies, and so we looked at that kind of thing. We did math, we made pyramids out of cubes. that was fun. We did art. We made like these Egyptian mummy death masks. We went to go visit the British History Museum. It was great fun. However, you could also pick a topic that's maybe important to you as a parent. So for example, my family is from France on my mother's side, and so we did a whole topic on France. We looked at Joan of Arc. We did the language. We looked at the food. We went to Borough Market and tried loads of different cheeses. We did lots of different things. Now, that's something that was important to me. However, it also could be something that you already know stuff about. So maybe you're thinking, okay, I've got a unit and maybe my kid is really into, I don't know, bananas. But you don't really know much about bananas, but you can learn as you go. Maybe there's something that's important to you, so France, for example, and while it's important that my children could understand their heritage, didn't know loads of stuff about Joan of Arc, so I did my own research and looked into it. But then there was other topics that I did know stuff about, and I was able to just go ahead and teach them. So for example, we did the oceans. My little ones are super into octonauts, so that was useful. But I already knew quite a lot of stuff about the ocean, so I was able to make a unit study about that. So it's a mix of child and adult learning, led learning, and you can do a topic for as long as you like or as short as you like, but it's a really good option. Let's go on to the next one. The sixth one we're going to look at is something called eclectic. Basically, that is all of the above, pick and mix. So maybe there's some parts of some methodologies that you like and some other parts you're like, don't think that's going to work for me. You pick what you like and you leave what you don't like. That's pretty much what eclectic means. Whatever works for your family. So for example, maybe you really like the idea of a rabbit hole and your kid can just have a time to explore whatever is interested in and you're able to enable them in that. But also maybe you like to have a bit more of a structured day. Maybe that would work better for your family or trying to juggle work around it. So you might have a unschooling morning when they're able to like delve into their interests, but maybe in the afternoon you'd have something maybe a bit more traditional where you have maybe a sit down class and you tell your kids about the coding that you're doing on your computer or something else, whatever it is. So with eclectic, it's pick and mix. You pick what you like and you leave what you don't. So what did we pick? Well, in the end of it, we sort of weighed it all up, but in the end, we picked eclectic. And if you want to know why, go check out our next video. We hope you enjoyed this, and we really hope it was useful. Please do like it if you found some sort of value in it, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.